With some of the big geopolitics in our last chat about the papers, you've picked out a few interesting nuggets inside, though, you two. Alison, first of all, a story about how businesses are reacting to Rachel Reeves's tax rises.
Yes. Well, there's a combination of things. So the headline is, firms are cutting jobs at fastest rate since the financial crisis ahead of tax raid. And basically, come April, employers will have national insurance increases and minimum wage is going up as well. You also have productivity and GDP indicators in the economy here now that are not great. So the contraction of the economy, the worry that employers have about being able to keep the people they've got, not even add people to their books, is a big worry, and that's the essence of this piece. Top economists warning British workers could face another $10 billion stealth tax raid, also to pay for defence spending. So that's another factor feeding into all of this,
absolutely,
too.
and a very live one with Keir Starmer, Kevin, off to Washington next week.
Yeah.
Some of the newspapers this morning suggesting that he will actually name the date by which the UK will meet this 2.5% of GDP goal that it has for defence spending. But Rachel Reeves has got some really tricky maths to do, hasn't she?
Absolutely. I mean, our attention has been, I think, understandably diverted by everything that Donald Trump has been saying lately on Ukraine. But this is the big political domestic story here, is the economy and the impact of the Chancellor's budget decisions last October, when they kick in April, you know, how that is going to affect. Because don't forget, Labour's #1 priority, we're repeatedly told, is to grow the economy. Well, all the indicators are that the decisions that the Chancellor has taken thus far are having the opposite effect. And if anything, they're dampening down any prospect of growth. And you're right, Anna, on top of that, the situation in Ukraine and Donald Trump's comments mean that we are going to have to spend more on defence. Europe is going to have to step up, we're being told. And 2.5% is going to be the bare minimum. By 2030, I'm not sure that's going to cut it as far as Trump's concerned. But also, you know, where is that money going to come from?
Exactly.
And it means it will have to come from other budgets. Is it cuts elsewhere?
And what about, we haven't even talked about tariffs yet. Well, what about that?
Stop talking, you're right, absolutely. You know, that's something else that might well come
when
up
that
this week.
comes, that's just going to compound this problem.
Yeah, although the UK saying we're not going to panic yet, we're hopeful, but so the visit by Keir Starmer has so many different pressures.
Hugely significant.
A lot on his agenda.
Let's move on, Kevin, to the front page of the Financial Times, and an article here, really interesting article about how restaurants are coping at the moment. Tell us what the problem is, first of all.
Yeah, so the problem is here, high-end restaurants in particular in London are saying there's a major problem with cancellations, and also, which I'd never heard of, a thing called reservation resale websites and bots. So basically, these websites will book a reservation, but not for themselves. They will then try to sell that on.
They sell the reservation.
They sell the reservation on, and obviously, if they fail to do that, then that's a no-show. So, which means that, you know, that table can't be booked by someone who actually does want to turn up and eat there. So, to try and counteract this issue, these restaurants are now charging a minimum spend when you book. So, Gymkhana, which is in Mayfair, so obviously quite a high-end restaurant, £100 minimum spend for dinner. That is the absolute minimum that you have to spend. There's another restaurant here, £80 per adult, and you have to pay it up front. So obviously the incentive there is, well, you better turn up then, because you've already paid for it, basically. But it's obviously a growing problem, and it comes at a time, kind of going back to what we were talking about just a moment ago, you know, firms are seeing costs going up, and they cannot afford for people not to turn up.
Well, yes,
and eat at
but
their
people as well seeing costs going up, and they're thinking, I really want to go out and have a nice evening, but I'm going to order perhaps a starter and a glass of wine,
and
but not splash out so that I can hang out for 3 hours. So they want to have the experience without spending the money.
Yeah. The only upside potentially is if they're social media influencers, and while they aren't paying a lot of money for their food, but if they're taking a lot of photos and posting, wow, I'm at this wonderful restaurant and it's lovely and here's how beautiful my food is, maybe that PR and promotional coverage offsets the fact they haven't spent very much.
Yeah.
They can
Maybe.
certainly try and argue that, I guess.
I guess they could, yeah, but I think the restaurants would much rather just have the money now
course they would.
Yeah.
rather than take
Yeah.
the chance.
Yeah,
further
of
down the
course they
line.
would.
Tough times for them.
Yeah.
Take us to an article, Alison, this is in the Times, about Gen Z and the pill.
Yes, well, it seems that Gen Z women generally are against hormone taking in a pill form and messing with their body through chemicals. And increasingly, when you read this piece and you realize it's actually also about trust in big pharma and trust in institutions, that's quite a worrying indicator. So for me, in some ways, this is more than just about taking the pill and not wanting to mess up your body chemistry and to use apps and other techniques for monitoring your monthly cycles. But more generally, Gen Z men and women have a concern about, do I trust big institutions, including big pharma, big companies, big government?
It's such a huge issue. It's absolutely fascinating. And we haven't really got time, but just I found the generational divide really interesting as well. There are more and more older women turning to HRT and hormonal
Yes.
help in that sense.
Yeah.
But younger women perhaps increasingly thinking twice about the pill. We're out of time. I talk too much and let Kevin talk. I'm so sorry.
That's all right.
Anyway, lovely to see you both as
You
ever.
too.
Thanks
Nice
so
to see you.
much. See you
Thank
again
you.
soon.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered.